I want to thank Frank for coming down and giving us a presentation on something that, without any question, I think is the most critical issue that our state faces when it comes to the affordable housing piece. The Highlands Act, without any doubt in my mind, I don't know how the state ever gets around not properly compensating landowners for their property once you've taken it away. I don't see how that will ultimately stand up in court. I think that court challenge hasn't moved forward. The state's going to be subjected to coming up with an awful lot of money to compensate for, as the story about your uncle is expressed. You can't strip out any ability to use that much property. You either have to compensate them justly or allow them to, this plan never goes into full effect. House values will drop, carbon emissions, congestion on the roads will increase, and flooding, from our perspective, certainly in the St. River Basin and any flooding areas across the state. We know we've seen flooding exacerbated in the last 30, 40 years because of all the crazy overdevelopment that has happened in the state of New Jersey. I mean, could you imagine the kind of development that would go on if this plan plays out the way that it has been set today? So our job now is to go out and try to change it. Whether the Democrats that control the legislature and the governor allow that to happen on their own, or whether we now have the opportunity to take back control of the state. But one way or the other, it's got to happen for the salvation of the state as a whole.
We should all know that Scott has authored a bill in the state legislature to protect specifically places like Wayne Township from the onerous pieces of the Mount Laurel legislation or Mount Laurel regulations. And even though we're in a minority in the legislature, we do have a bill that Scott has written and introduced. And, you know, when we go out and campaign, and all of us are involved somehow, some way, we got to make that known that we're fighting the battle, and Scott is leading the charge for us here in Wayne Township to protect us. And anyway, of course, we're a minority party in the state legislature, so they're not going to give a Republican legislator credit for anything, but we should all know that it's there. You know, when you talk about legislation, here is real legislation that our Assemblyman, our Scott, has authored. I mean, it is a great talking point when we all do battle, and we're all constantly doing battle one way or another in our political lives, and we should just know these things.
Well, thank you, Mike, for that, for the comments, and you know what we're up against, just to put it into perspective, is Wayne's numbers, and everybody who either lives in Wayne in this room or knows Wayne well enough, we're facing a number of affordable housing out of 1,366 total units. Our number then becomes 8,200 total housing units, 8,200 additional housing units in the state and the township of Wayne. That's a 45% increase from what we have today. So we've got about 17,000 households. 45% more people, going from 55,000 to almost 80,000 people. The new schools, you know how long it takes you to get out of town today. Could you imagine trying to navigate out of like Pines Lake to get out to Route 23 or the Valley section to get out to anywhere? I mean, it is absurd that this would go unchecked. Now, who do we have engaged in the battle? The environmental community is completely with us in our effort. And that's a very powerful force to have on our side. The other part of the equation is the unions, trades are actually with us. They detest this bill. It has stifled all of their ability to get jobs and work because there's so much wrong language that is against the grain of what they stand for to try to promote development. They don't need this kind of development. That's not where they have their strength. They don't want this. They don't like the 2.5% fee. They see it's stifling the economy and it's stifling jobs for them. So we have locked into some pretty powerful forces they tend to not be with us as Republicans. But in reality, they are now with us on this battle, and it's again a way for the Republican Party to start capturing strength and seats back, and hopefully.
And Scott, your bill A2888.
Yeah.
Okay, got it right.
Okay.
Also, Scott and I discussed this when he first came out with it. It does apply to communities like West Milford also.
Absolutely.
Because we do not, because the way it's worded is, X amount of available space to build. Even though we have all those acres, we, like I said, even before the Highlands Act, we had maybe 2% where you can build. So we're under that cap. So that bill also works for Highlands communities.
It's geared
So
to
we have to be promoted.
We have a whole
promoted
package. We have a whole package of bills that we're rolling out.
When you submit an article to the local press, will they print it? You have done one a month ago.
They've been printing it. We've been getting a lot of press.
You get pretty wide dissemination of that.
We're getting a lot of
When you do
press.
it.
I was down in Clinton Township 2 nights ago. Tuesday night. It was Tuesday night. I was down in the 23rd district. Met with. I thought it was only about 50 or 60. I heard it was actually the total count was 100 people showed up, and that was mayors, council people, planning board members, some average citizens. Assemblywoman Caro had a woman from COAH there presenting or answering questions for all the participants in the little forum. And it's very interesting because that's all the Highlands area, so I actually picked up a lot more information about the dynamics of Highlands preservation versus the planning areas, and it was interesting to watch the dynamics of how that all works with the whole affordable housing package. At the end of the day, there is so much anger from every corner of the state you can find, from the most rural areas like that, because this is really open spaces, farm country, and they are frustrated because they can't build onto those farms, and yet they're going to have to deal with this housing. Simultaneously, you get into the most developed areas, Rutherford and Carlstadt, leading the charge right now, trying to keep out 900 units in their little town. So, I mean, no matter where you go, there is absolute hostility. And I think that there's enough hostility that all we have to do is get out and make sure we keep on educating people. Every day, you got to be talking about this issue. I don't shut up.
People are hopping mad when they really know what's going on.
Yeah, they are. They certainly will. All you need to do is contact the people that live around any given property, and then have a meeting. Get those people out to the meeting. And you know what you're going to have? A lot of really, really ticked off people who are going to be energized to want to tear down this whole plan.
Would we get a blanket Highlands exemption for COAH development?
No.
No. Not yet.
But don't see. I'm Frank's got a particular.
His is broader.
My concern is much more.
But it works for us
beyond the
You know what I'm
Highlands.
saying? I mean, right, Highlands is our friend in this area, as to COAH.
Everything. We can't live. The lady from COAH was a really interesting dialogue I had with her on the way out the door. Believe it or not, she says, I'm starting to explain to her about flood, and I can see she's looking at me like, yeah, no big deal about flooding. I'm saying, ma'am, I'm not talking about puddles. I'm not talking about streets being flooded. I'm talking about 12 to 15 feet of water around houses. 7 knots current. Dangerous beyond your belief. And you can't put more water into this system. She says, well, no, then we'll have to actually have you guys plan to put it someplace else. I said, you don't understand how the Passaic River Basin works, man.
Goes where it wants to.
No matter where you build in the Passaic River Basin, that water goes into that river. I don't care where you build, anywhere in the township of Wayne, anywhere up and down this river system, all those pipes end up in that river. There is no other place that it goes. That's where it goes. That's why you have the flooding at the rate that you have, at the massive amounts. I mean, we've been sued for the last 3 years by GAF on the hill over here at Alps Road. Well, where do you think that water goes? Right down into the brook, which goes into Bacharach Lake, which goes into Little Brook down by Laguna Drive, and that goes into the Passaic River.
It goes to Clifton over there.
Nothing can be built on that property as far as I'm concerned. And that's going to get tied up. That'll be tied up in court from now until the end of time as far as I'm concerned, because you're not going to ruin the lives more of the people that are being flooded today.